There is no society without racists. The matter started even with the Bible, which set discrimination against uncircumcised races. The men with the skinheads are dirty. So are many non-Christians. One Greek mathematician cautioned that his students not eat beans because beans looked like female sex organs and so not decent. People like to talk about unusual truth and this make that as hard rock truth. For example, hairy men are like monkeys. Men with shiny skins are like snakes. White people smell of skunks, yellow men smell of garlic, Chinese never take bath, Japanese are kind but only on appearance. They are animals. They experiment on live humans. One Korean soldier in Vietnamese war cut out the women's genitalia of 3 different races and preserved them in the bottle of alcohol, and he showed off his spoils to everyone visiting his home. Koreans never recompense the Vietnamese while Koreans ask Japanese to recompense them. Britons never return the spoils from India, China, Greek, and Turkey. The Spaniards killed South Americans. Americans killed Indians. The British sold opium to China. Russians looked around for Korean girls while they fought for North Korea. Europeans sent missionaries while they looted the natives. Europeans asked the natives to close eyes for prayers to the Lord. They held the Bible in one hand and guns in the other hands. In the Old Testament, God asked Israel to kill the strangers. So did the Europeans. They used God and the Bible, but they did not want to include Israel in their winner's history. Therefore, Israel sells God's Son to European visitors, and the ones European missionaries converted. How much money Israel makes by selling tickets to the European Christians and the Koreans whom the European missionaries converted into proud Christians. The world history is written by the destroyers and the usurpers of the innocent absolute being. Become strong. Sometimes you need to spit on the Bible and his Son. Then you will become rich and good. Japanese in Korea are kind to Koreans, but Japanese in other countries curse at Koreans. A Japanese professor did it to me. A Japanese girl did it to me in the United States. One white woman asked me how I make love with my wife when I sleep with my children around me. One man said whenever he thinks of Seoul, he can think of 1988 Seoul Olympic Games where one boxer hit the judge on the ring. An American general participating in Korean War said, Koreans are like rats, but he fought for Korea. I met a lot of good people in America, more good people than bad people. They were humble and kind. To become a successful racist, you need cooperation from others. You need many others who can support your attitudes. Then you can become strong and gain justice of your attitudes. Hitler had a lot of supporters. Stalin had a lot of supporters. Hirohito had a lot of supporters. Mao had a lot of supporters. The supporters helped kill Christians, wealthy ones, and scholars. In addition to religious prejudice, people become racists by political ideologies. By this politics, Japanese exterminating the residents in northern islands near Russia because they look different. Russians removed minorities in remote corners. Almost all majority who hold the political power exercised racism officially. People agreed on that. Church did not allow colored people. Politics killed colored people. Both sides cooperated very well. And they caused violence, but they say they did that because it was you who were violent. Asia has negative image. We travel only to Europe. All those who marry Asian girls are handicapped ones. We think Asian wives were prostitutes before they married the white men. Now we need to change our attitudes. We need to have Asia positive movement. Look how Koreans garner money from our markets. We don't like cheap items. We don't eat Asian pears. Asian fruits are genetically modified. How can you live under the threat of North Korea? Korean men are ugly for Korean women. Korean men's faces like a plate of pie. How often do you eat meat? One time a Harvard president said in a big assembly that there are millions of child prostitutes in Seoul. And Korean government authority raised complaint, and he apologized. It was true that there were a lot of Korean prostitutes near American military camps. Korean prostitutes were sometimes said to be asked to have sex with dogs before the crowds of American soldiers. One soldier pushed an umbrella head and a Coke bottle into a girl's sex organ before he killed her. One soldier who married a girl and took her to his country, and he sexually harassed her. He beat her and threw her out of the window from the second floor. A Korean student was asked to translate for her in the hospital. The man ran away. The news coverage helps the ugly image staggering on the victims, not on the aggressors. The police do not hear the victims but the attackers, because the attackers have always more power and they are their fellow citizens. A Korean student had a Korean girlfriend. He spent time with her in his apartment. Australian boys came in and forced the Koreans to have sex before them, and threw them out of the window naked. It was widely reported. How the police dealt with the criminals was not reported because it was not interesting. People enjoy watching others being made of fun. The aggressors have good memory. However, the victims live in nightmare. The attackers enjoy watching their victims suffering from the pain they inflicted. The weak minority cannot become a racist, but they can become the targets. The racists are cowards. They come to Korea, and they are lovers of Koreans. They go home and they are haters of Koreans. A Canadian man returned home and published his experience in Korea. He lived in Korea for a few years and he sexed more than 4,000 Korean women. He looked at the Korean woman and the woman followed him. A Canadian English teacher sexed Korean girl students. Before having sex, he asked the girl to write down on paper what he said. "I do not ask you to marry me after this sex." He told the girls' names to other teachers after he moved to other school. I was shocked to hear that a really intelligent young student had sexed him. From then on I decided not to believe in girls. I don't know why Korean girls like white men so much.
People hate abominable food. People like abominable sex with exotic men. People like harmony, but people feel bored at harmony. They like cacophony. Beethoven was exotic because he was deaf. Beethoven constructed an insurmountable human cultural asset, and every musician wants to have Beethoven's fame. Koreans give everything to be recognized in European classical music area. But he or she is only an Asian. One pianist got the grand prize in Chopin competition. One old judge gave him 0 point. The Asian grand prize winner is still an Asian man. People wanted to hear the pianist's reaction, not the judge's reaction. The pianist accepted the judge's insults with respect to the judge's decision. In addition to music, Europeans led all the technologies after which Asians had to follow. Europeans may well despise Asians in this respect. The first Asians who decided to adopt the Western science were Japanese. Japanese learned shipbuilding technology by inviting European technicians when Chinese and Koreans closed the national doors. After all, Japanese built better warships than England. Japanese built combat planes and hit Americans. It attacked America because America tried to stop its brutalities in Asia. Japanese killed American and European prisoners of war, but Japanese did not kill German prisoners because Japan took side of Hitler. They took German soldiers to Japan and put them in a special area. Japanese sent girls into the camp of German prisoners of war. Germans could walk out of the camps freely, and they played Beethoven's Symphony No. 9 for the first time in Asia. Japanese take pride. Japan became Asia's first country to play the great musician's greatest piece of music. Europeans like Japanese because they were fearless people. Europeans think decent-looking Koreans or Chinese to be Japanese, but all ugly ones to be Koreans or Chinese. They said to me as a compliment, "Oh, I thought you were Japanese."
Korean TV female reporter says only yes and yes while male reporter does all the talking. Why do Korean women walk far behind the men? Why do Korean women always work while men sit and watch TV? An American news reporter asked the Korean financial minister if he went to room salon and had a girl sit beside him the previous night in his news briefing meeting. He wanted to help Korean women. In our teacher's picnic, my American friend and I went out for a drinking and ran into a Korean man hitting a Korean woman. She wanted to go away from him, and the man hit her to keep her. It was nighttime. Not many were around the couple, but no one went to stop the man. But my American friend did and hit the man. I felt shame because I did not do anything. I saw an American boy hitting a girl on campus one evening. I pretended to not see anything and walked away. Solomon had 700 wives and 300 concubines. A black boy said he would shit on my face while many other white boys wanted to talk with me. I had many white girls talking with me. White people were much kinder and humbler. I did not know how to use public phone and approached a white gentleman. He inserted his coins in the phone and dialed for me. He went away without even giving me time to say thank you. People in America make fun of Asian Indians' English pronunciation. I had good friendship with Indian people. But Indian men having white girlfriends are different. They look at me like white racist. I went to ask about how to apply for Social Security number in the administrative office. There was an Indian boy and a white girl working there. The Indian man did not listen to me. He kept me no and no. The white girl just stood there in silence. I went into the dean's office, and the dean said, "Ajag has a negative image." It was not a pleasant experience. Most people suffer from verbal violence. Family members, neighbors, strangers, all experience insulting reactions from time to time. Buddhism founder had birds shitting on his head during meditation. Jesus had insulting family members and neighbors. Confucius was kicked out from the king. Do not scold yourself because others say you are nasty and disgusting. Thank the cussing librarian. Thank them if they think you tore the pages away in the library because you are Asian. Thank the German police if they take you because they think you stole in the department store. Thank the restaurant owner if he says all the seats are reserved and there are no seats available for you when you see most seats are unoccupied. Don't call the police because they will not listen. I had a host family. Their first son was a policeman. He took me home in his car. Their children were so careful not to hurt me in any way possible. I thank them. So good people. A Korean woman married to a white man said she eats Korean food in secret because her husband does not like the smell of Korean food, particularly the smell of kimchi. A Korean woman is said to suffer from her husband's sexual assault every night. Because the depth of her organ is shallow, but his tube is longer, the wall of her organ is torn and bleeding. Her face looks pale yellow because of the pain from the violent sex. I did not believe this kind of rumor until I heard in person from one Korean woman who married a white man. This man did not let her love her son in Korean way. He stopped all the way of her Korean styles. This man was a scholar and knew everything more than others. He hated Koreans, calling students names. Koreans have double standards. They do things imperfectly when they want the foreigners to not follow them. They fire foreigners when they do things in Korean way. Absurdity is everywhere. It killed Socrates. Socrates had notorious wife. So did Abraham Lincoln. So did Martin Luther. It seemed there is no famous man who married a good wife. What do you mean by good wife? Is she good-looking, amiable woman? Then why don't you marry a cute cat or beautiful dog? Some countries allow sex with animals. Some countries allow same-sex husband and wife. You can't avoid the ugly Koreans. You share the same sky. When you cannot get away from ugly people, why don't you try to understand them and make friends with them? Everyone carries stinking digestive wastes in their stomach. Don't decide books by covers. My American friend and I joined a student camping trip. We went out for a glass of beer. We saw a short fat woman. To my eyes, she was not attractive, but my friend said he was shocked at her beauty. I laughed loudly. He said again that she was the most beautiful. I looked at her again. He may lie.
You are half black. Your face is not black, but not like ours. It looks yellow. Why do Asian women use sunlight umbrella? Korean women cover their faces while hiking. You can see only her eyes. Korean women want to look white. They hate sunlight. White women want to have their skin look suntanned. Even black people want to have their bodies suntanned. Korean women want to have cosmetic surgery to look like us. They want to have double eyelid surgery. They want to have plastic surgery on the chin and cheek to look like us. They try to erase their original nature by covering up with modern medical technique. Still, they cannot do anything with their physique. They have longer upper body than lower body. Their chest is flat. They have protruded lips. They have sleepy eyes. Why do all Koreans wear glasses? It is true that there are more Koreans who hate their body than those who love them. Many young girls suffer hunger to look light when they are not heavy at all.
I eat dog meat, sea cucumber, and everything else but duck liver. I never skinned sea lions for their hide. I cannot understand how Koreans knew to drink milk so much. We never had animal brazier before. We steal the bees of their honey. We stop goat feeding its baby for we want its milk. We did not do that until we learned them from others. Japanese said they taught Korean how to grow strawberries. We thank them for their knowledge. We are sorry about dogs. If you can stop eating snails, crocodiles, kangaroos, lizards, we can stop eating snakes, bats, rats, cats, and dead humans. Some men sex killed girls. Some men sex their daughters. Some mothers sex their sons. In many cases, husband run away with her younger sisters. Some father-in-law sex his daughter-in-law. These are worse than going to prostitutes. But we live with them. No avoidance.
I still cannot forget the time I took a native speaker woman teacher to a broiled eel restaurant. The broiled eel still had skin and head when it came out on the tray. She showed a broken face. That is a funny face. But when you say you have a funny face, he or she means you look not handsome. People kiss dogs, pigs, cats, birds, almost anything. They suck genitalia, even swallow secretion. But people never hesitate to say, how can you put that in your mouth when they see Koreans eat grasshoppers, pupa, and slippery seaweeds? Koreans can cook even rocks and eat them, even placenta.
I would rather eat insects than become child molester. Michael Jackson, the pop legend, sang for children's welfare, but he was charged of being child abuser. One grandmother of Christ was a whore.
But that does not matter for him. He still loved his father God. He still loved his father Joseph. He showed no funny face. Everything was beautiful.
No one can tell others what to eat and what not to eat when everyone eats what feces fertilize. Korean mothers made soju from toilet honey buckets and fed their sons to make them judges. Koreans also eat mountain oysters. Koreans also eat chicken feet and pig feet. Western butchers make a lot of money exporting such organs to Korean markets. We coexist. You make money, no insulting.
Money cannot make anyone superior, nor can the appearance. Some people hate Asian business people who are successful. It seems hard for them to digest that Asians can also become rich people.
Most normal people give applause to the ones who are talented without regard to races. They loved Gangnam Style, BTS, the movie Parasites, and they elected Ban Ki-moon as head of United Nations. They welcome Korean waves against the coronavirus. But little mistakes make others suffer. Let's be considerate.
We have an old saying, even straw-thatched Sue has its pair. So don't worry. You will get one that suits you. You are a peanut. If your partner is a pot, how can you satisfy it to its top? A white gay approached me and my Korean friend. We did not know he was like that until we heard him say that. He was a medical student. Which one is a problem? He said he was a Jew. Why?
Adam lived with animals and he found no one that suited him. God felt sorry and took Adam's penis to make one without penis. Man's penis grows whenever it sees its child without penis. Women want your penis to grow over the limit. You don't set the limit. It is the woman who set the limit and stop there.
There was a poster posted on the cafeteria wall that said the bigger your penis is, the more gratifying it is. That was an insult for rice eaters. White girls went into black boys' room after lunch. They are chosen ones for that. Hallelujah.
President Park Chung-hee told us not to mention anything belonging under your belt. But I hear a lot of European people mentioning the size of Asian men's sex organs.
They showed their fingertips to their friends with me beside them. I heard several women who slept Korean men saying, it was good. Who said Asian men have little ones touching only on the lips. I heard the wife of a university president ran away with a young man, and he did not want to attend the commencement ceremony. Women consider men's reproductive power so much. I think it is God-given passion. Look at cicada. The female cicada cries for male partners until it dies. Look at mosquitoes. The female sits on you. Sometimes I think that the daughters of Virgin Mary are dirty. One of my female classmates said to me, sex is not dirty. She was open-minded. She was decent, handsome, and intelligent. I like her. But why keep saying the size of penis? I need a real penis. He is a little man. I like a long leg. His leg is short. The bigger his thing is, the more satisfactory it is. Japanese women like black men the most, and white men the second, and Japanese men for the last for their sexual satisfaction. For sex, women seem to be more serious racists. Women seem to like to talk about sex more than men. All self-designated sex educators online in Korea are women. They encourage women to open eyes for sexual independence by enjoying masturbation. European women show up online video and expose their sexual experience with Korean men. They are careful not to instigate Korean society by covering the size. Some women do not hesitate to mention how many men they went together with under the sheet, and how the men tried to satisfy them, either by tongues or fingers.